Okay, so I'm just going to go through a few basic principles of EPQ mentoring. Probably the place to begin is with the choice of titles. It's a vital part of the project process, obviously, and something which can cause anxiety both for the student and for the mentor. And there's lots of things that we could explore here, but if I wanted to break it down into really key points, I would emphasize my little FACE model here: focus, access, controversy, and engagement. Focus, there needs to be a clear focus for the project. EPQ is an A-level standard qualification. It's not just like a primary school project about the Egyptians or the Vikings. So usually there needs to be a central question or a practical challenge if there's a artifact or performance project being done. And that question or practical challenge should be fairly specific. That's not always something that students get right at the start. It's something that sometimes emerges over time. But in the first few weeks of the project process, we would look for the students to become clearer and clearer about what they're trying to do to gain that focus. Access is important as well. That means that the project needs to be at the right level. Not too hard, not too demanding. Often students pick questions and only discover after some initial research that the level of material and the level of ideas is a little beyond them. So helping students to find something which is rigorous but also accessible is important. And as I've intimated, there's an interplay here between framing objectives, coming up with titles, and carrying out the initial research. So a student may, for example, come up with a draft title, do some initial research, have another conversation with you, the mentor, and then after you've decided that perhaps it's a little bit too challenging, we look at a slightly simpler, more tractable question. So access matters. The student won't progress well unless they've got material which is within their scope. Controversy, not necessarily meaning that the project needs to be highly contentious, but that there does need to be scope for argument and counter-argument, or the exploration of alternative interpretations or perspectives. So what we mean here is that a project isn't just a textbook. The student is not being asked to write lots and lots of information that they've gathered up from websites and fill up page after page with a sort of fact dump. We want them to have a nub to the question, where there needs to be an issue. And I often say to them, locate the debate, find the point that people are arguing about and try and join in with the argument. That's a good way of ensuring that that deeper thinking, that analysis, that argument and counter-argument will be present in the project. And again, that's something that needs to be checked at the point of choosing a title. So if a student were to choose a title such as "How has Formula One changed in the past 10 years?", they could write a good descriptive piece of writing there, but it's unlikely that there'll be much argument. If, on the other hand, they used a title such as "Should we be prioritizing driver safety more?" or "Have technical changes enhanced the sport?", then we've got scope for argument and counter-argument. So finding a controversy and locating a debate is important. And finally, engagement. I usually tell students that the EPQ is the single biggest piece of work that they'll do at school. And they need to do something that interests them. It's their project. It's their opportunity to pursue a question just because they're engaged with it. And sometimes we have to work quite hard to help them find that point of engagement. We have to go outside the scope of the normal curriculum sometimes to embrace topics which might link to their hobbies or to their aspirations for future work. But finding something that they actually really do care about, it matters. And so it's worth asking the question, are you doing this because you think it'll be easy or because it will look good on your UCAS form? Or is it because it's something you really are actually genuinely interested in? So engagement matters. Keep those in mind then when you're looking at titles and have the conversation with the students. One other point about that is that we can't be dictatorial about this. EPQ, as I've said, is their thing, it's their project, and ultimately it's their choice. We're there in the capacity as a mentor to support the process, to help them make better choices, to offer advice and guidance, but we need to allow them to take charge. So often a conversation about titles will take the form of a negotiation in which we propose ideas and we the teacher propose an idea and students respond to that. And it may take a week or two before the point of your advice really begins to be appreciated. So don't be anxious about that. Do allow time in the opening phase of a project for those elements of focus, accessibility, controversy, and engagement to really crystallize. It doesn't always happen in the first lesson or two. Moving on from there, if we're then getting the students to fill out the proposal and activity log, then the thing I would emphasize is the importance of reflection. Sometimes students can write these documents in a rather wooden fashion, simply relating their activities or their planned activities, but really we're interested in the intellectual management of the project process. That is to say, the thought that goes into the choice of objectives, the reasoning behind the choice of the question, the reflection as the project unfolds on possible alterations, problems, modifications, changes. So encourage students to be honest about their thoughts and their feelings and the decisions they've made, the things they're uncertain about. All of that can go into the log and into the proposal form as well. We expect there to see real thought about why the project matters, why is it important, what's the real issue. So encourage reflection and encourage thought when students are filling out their proposal form and their log. As I've already mentioned, the project needs to be well focused, and if they're doing a dissertation or an investigation, that would mean having a central research question which needs to be open, that is, to alternative interpretations or alternative possible answers. There needs to be scope, as I've said, for discussion, debate, argument, and controversy. In the case of a practical project, an artifact or performance, it's best really to steer students towards thinking in terms of a practical challenge. And here it can be helpful for them to have in mind a client, an end user, somebody who will make use of the outcome of their project. That client may be real or hypothetical. But the point is their project should be designed to meet a particular need or to fulfill a particular purpose or to achieve a specific effect with a particular audience. So helping them to think in terms of who is my work for, in what context is it going to be exhibited or presented, and how do I want my audience to respond to my work. These are good things for them to think about if they're doing a practical project. And incidentally, sometimes it's helpful for them, if they're doing the practical options, not to phrase it in the form of a question, because the question can get in the way and convolute the process. So simply saying, my aim is to create a repertoire of music that could be used on a visit to, for example, a primary school. If I've been asked as a musician to perform to primary school students, what would be appropriate in that context? That would be a good practical challenge for an EPQ. So that's some thoughts about the initial stage. We're going to get on to thinking then about the actual structure of the work. And here I do think it helps students if they have a framework that's been advised and that you've discussed with them. They won't necessarily know how to lay out a research project, and breaking down this large-scale task into a series of manageable subtasks is enormously helpful for them, and it's helpful for you as well, the mentor, because it means you can take them step by step through the process. So I've put there the details of a framework that I would use typically with most students, not all students, but with most students, for a dissertation or an investigation project, and a structure as well for a performance and artifact. And in the next video, we'll spend a little time exploring what those involve.